What would you say is a verbal letter of recommendation for SIL LEAD?
Hi, I'm Deborah Beckus. I'm the Senior Director of Global Impact at World Reader, and I had the pleasure of working with SIL LEAD for a number of years during my time at the All Children Reading Grand Challenge. I think they always led both from a level of wanting to really support the communities that they serve, but also from their heart and really being compassionate and kind and empathetic.
My name is Shakil Malik. I'm the Senior Practice Leader for Global Education at DI. I would say SIL LEAD is one of the most unique mother language, mother tongue related organization that has contributed extraordinarily around the world for improving learning outcomes for young children. And I would recommend for SIL LEAD without a blink to any partner, any organization, any Ministry of Education in any given country who is very interested to improve the quality of learning for their children in their mother tongue and second language issues. I think they are one of the best.
My name is Linda Hebert. I currently am retired. I was working for World Vision as the Vice President for International Programs. And that's how I came to know Paul and the SIL LEAD group. I think that one of the key innovations that they provided was the Bloom software to develop books and then also make books available in so many different languages. That to us, both in terms of World Vision as well as in terms of what we were doing in the Global Book Alliance, was a great contribution.
So my name is Jennifer Sliffmorgan. I'm a senior advisor for education and for governance at Chemonics International. Really, it starts with the passion that all of the SIL colleagues with whom I've worked show for mother tongue education. The absolute joy and ability of having a young person, particular children, be able to learn to read in their mother tongue is what I know drives the hard work and the dedication. You add to that then the unparalleled scientific linguistic expertise that allows us to bring these languages alive in the text, teaching and learning materials that we've been able to put together to ensure that they are codified, that they're standardized, so that the Ministry of Education can really take them forward as a language of instruction. And finally, to be able to do the kind of social linguistic mapping to understand, where are the different languages, how are they being used in different ways in communities, and helping communities make decisions about how they want those languages being used for their children now and for coming generations. And I really don't know anyone else who can do that like SIL can.
My name is Penelope Bender. I am currently consulting for the World Bank. Previously, I worked with SIL LEAD when I was at Berta Education and at USAID and in many other capacities ever since the founding of SIL LEAD. SIL LEAD has always been great to work with. From management to all people I've interacted with, there's always been a high level of expertise and collegiality and willingness to collaborate on whatever issue or problem we might be facing, whether a very simple one or something that's much more tricky.
My name is Rebecca Chandler Leaguey. I am the Chief Impact Officer at World Reader. I had the pleasure of first engaging with SIL LEAD during my tenure at World Vision US. SIL LEAD, they provide partner organizations the rich linguistic and literacy support that really helps build the development of content in local languages. I'm impressed with their development of Bloom over the last 10 years and the way that it's been adopted by communities to produce more and more local language content.
My name is Natalie Luge. I'm an Education Technical Advisor at FHI 360. When there is anything language specific in a request for proposals, I immediately reach out to SIL LEAD. And they always seem to have excellent resource folks in different language groups, as well as a sensitivity to language and education issues in specific contexts. I also love that SIL LEAD is always so passionate and excited at the prospect of applying their research and their depth of knowledge to improving education, both for majority and minority languages across the world.
What has been SIL LEAD's contribution to international education in its 10 years of existence?
Its contribution is both, I would say, the necessary attention that's come about in the past 10 years to mother tongue education at grand scale, right? And the second is, again, the technical ability to work in these languages such that they can be used for instruction. Both of those things are tremendous contributions.
So I think the key contribution has been the availability of languages and materials, and that has been a key component of the way in which both World Vision in the education area, as well as the Global Book Alliance, have really engaged with SIL LEAD. The number of languages, first of all, is just phenomenal. Over 300 languages on the Bloom website has been amazing. And I think being available across the globe. Also, it's access to everyone. So not only are the languages available, but the way in which they've made it free on the Bloom website, as well as providing access for the blind and the deaf, has been amazing. The sign language component, as well as the verbal component for the blind, are just really first-class quality.
As I reflect on SIL LEAD over the last 10 years, I recognize as part of its journey, it's gone from being a technical advisor to organizations to really being an implementation organization across the globe. So it broadened, in my opinion, from linguistics to guiding organizations in the development of leveled and decodable readers, curriculum, supplemental reading materials, all of that done with the frame being able to use its own software and further empower communities to create much needed reading material. I first came into contact with SIL LEAD at World Vision, and in their capacity to be working with the organization, testing their Bloom software. But what I understood about the organization was its ability to adapt and evolve over these last 10 years, and to do so in a way that generated significant impact. So it grew, in my understanding, from a software and linguistic support to a few international nonprofit organizations, to really being a platform in which organizations could adopt the Bloom software, gain the technical expertise by SIL LEAD staff around the globe, and really produce higher impact overall. A huge credit goes to Paul Frank and John Hatton in terms of their Bloom software. When we were first introduced to the software, it was as part of our competition to create a tool that communities could use to generate decodable and leveled readers. And in that process, the willingness to learn, to refine that software for use across multiple languages was really evident. The testing that was conducted, the willingness to make the adaptations that were needed around the solution, and then to watch the journey, to watch that software and organizations adopt Bloom across the globe, from the Philippines to Nigeria to Mali, etc. And in that, to see that evolution of the small organization and team develop something that now has accessibility features, both audio and for sign language, and to be continually recommended and utilized by large INGOs and contractors working around the globe.
So there is a long dossier, right? One of the big issues that we saw is lack of supplemental reading materials. So children learning to read, and then there is not enough materials to read. And SIL LEAD actually played a vital role, not only developing those materials, but also making them available and making them rightly leveled, rightly graded. So I think the amount of support, the amount of contribution is extraordinary these 10 years in many countries, which it will take a long time to just list them one after another.
So SIL LEAD has done a tremendous job of continuing to support the work that many of us are doing to make sure that children are going to school in languages that they understand. The resources of all of SIL and SIL LEAD have been critical to moving this work forward. From the ethnologue to other technical resources such as fonts, to country level experts and programs, SIL's work has just been invaluable for all of us. I came to USAID right at the beginning of the strategy to lead that work on early grade reading. And so SIL LEAD's involvement in this and my involvement in this started at the same time. And I would say that throughout the time that I was at USAID from 2011 to 2017, we worked together in a number of informal and formal ways with support going to countries, and then also some technical support coming to us at headquarters in Washington. So whenever I had a particularly tricky linguistic question or a question about the history of language use in a particular country, I knew that I could always turn to SIL LEAD, and I would get very timely, accurate, collegial information that I needed to move the particular issue forward.
In my work, developing curriculum and teaching and learning materials for literacy instruction, they've brought tools like Symphony and Bloom that have been essential to making the process of materials development more efficient and have ensured higher quality of the materials that we produce. SIL LEAD's research, such as sociolinguistic mappings, have also opened my eyes and my colleagues' eyes to the realities of language use for education and outside of education. And the outcomes of this research have had a real impact and translated into making literacy and language programs that better meet the needs of teachers and learners and account for and respect their language backgrounds.
SIL LEAD played a really critical role in the work of the All Children Reading Grand Challenge. They were one of our first awardees. And together we really learned about what it means to take a technology into marginalized non-digital communities, to adapt resources into language that no one else was working in from a digital perspective. And we learned together what it means to work from a perspective of using technology in new and interesting ways, but also in very simple ways that could reach some of the most marginalized communities.
What's unique about SIL LEAD?
What's unique about SIL LEAD, I think, is truly the reach of the network that SIL LEAD is able to tap into through SIL International, but be able to bring that in a manageable way, right? To be working on anything between a small scale subcontract to large scale projects, particularly in the USAID market, but be able to do so efficiently and in a way that taps into, again, this immense network of linguists and reading specialists across the world in many of the languages that otherwise have been neglected at larger scale. And that's truly, truly unique. And I really can't think of anyone else who can do that.
When I think about what's unique, I think of their staff. Their staff that's professional, they're obviously very, very smart, but also adaptive because they understand the context and the diversity of contexts in which many organizations are working and how they can come around and support and amplify the work that they're doing. SIL LEAD's strengths are its people, its technical expertise, and again, its ability to effectively operate in a diverse array of contexts around the world.
They are efficiently economic, and there is definitely resource constraints in our sector. And SIL LEAD is a very economically efficient organization. With low resources, they can make a lot work, which I have seen proven in many cases.
SIL LEAD is unique in that staff have very deep knowledge of linguistics and of the country contexts where they work. They have that kind of village level, school level experience that you just don't find in a lot of organizations.
Do you have a brief story or vignette about SIL LEAD and or its staff that might help people appreciate us as an organization?
I can think of one very recent one. So I am not a very technology-focused person. As many people know, I work in very rural contexts. My background is really in the Sahel. And I always say that without electricity and without connectivity, tech is not where we need to go. So I recently had an issue around the use of Unicode for a particular language that I won't name. And there was a lot of confusion and concern about how we can write this language, how can we create materials in this language, what are we going to do in this language? And so, not being very familiar with Unicode, I reached out to SIL LEAD for some help. And I would say within 15 or 20 minutes, I received a very useful, very straightforward, very simple explanation of the problems and the solutions. And it was something that I was able to share with the country right away. And we could move past what they really considered to be an insurmountable obstacle in developing their materials in their own language to a place where we could start to do the development of the materials that they needed.
The story starts with having made contact with SIL LEAD in Washington with Paul and with others while we were first exploring potential work in Senegal. I had a great first conversation with Paul about that, and it was very encouraging for me to go visit the office in Senegal and Dakar. And I guess I'll never forget sort of walking into that office and seeing the bookshelf of all of the materials that SIL LEAD had collected and also had helped to create in so many languages in Senegal. You know, I remember hearing, and of course SIL talks a lot about the limited libraries that exist in many languages, right? Well, we walk into a public library anywhere in America in English, and you have as many books as you could possibly ever desire to have. And in some languages, they're just one little part of the shelf. Well, I remember walking into that office in Dakar and just being mesmerized by how many books were on that shelf through so much hard work for SIL. Again, collecting and encouraging that these things be written down, the stories, oral stories be written down and be accessible to any reader, to children and to adult readers across the country in all these many different languages. And the warm welcome I received in that office and the excitement about potentially working together and taking this work to large scale as part of national policy in Senegal, together under the Lecture pour tous program, we've been able to help the Ministry of National Education finalize its work towards a national languages-based bilingual education reform, which is going to convert the entire primary education cycle to bilingual education based on national languages. And just the excitement of potentially embarking on that together in that office, surrounded by all these wonderful resources in multiple languages, is something that I think I'll always remember.
One of the stories that really come to my mind right now, this was something we have done for Global Reading Network, funded by USAID, Reading Within Reach project. And SIL LEAD was a partner in that Global Reading Network program. And SIL LEAD was involved in a very large workshop in Jakarta, Indonesia. And I remembered how we managed 5-country representation because the workshop was multilingual. People were from Philippines, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, from Bangladesh, and each of the smaller team have to develop mother tongue supplemental materials in their own language. And it was a writer's workshop. And I remember how Paul and his team really helped successfully manage that multilingual environment and use of the Bloom software. It was really quite complicated when you are dealing with 5 languages and then English as the language of instruction. But it really worked very well, and we worked almost for a week together, and we came out with many, many materials at the end of the workshop. And all those materials and more are all online, available now for those countries and around the world.
I remember one of my first kind of big experiences working with SIL LEAD. We were going to do a training in Ethiopia. And I can't remember all the partners that were there, but it was complicated. It wasn't a simple training, and there was lots of opinions involved. And I got to go to Ethiopia with Paul Frank, and I was just so inspired by the way that he led. He was calm, he was thoughtful, he took all opinions in and tried to just provide a really robust training and meet really the participants where they were. And also just, I had never been to Ethiopia before, and he was so gracious and kind to me and exploring a new place and making sure that I felt safe and supported. And I just was always, saw Paul as a thought partner and someone that I knew was going to do good work, and that I knew you could put in any room or any situation and he would figure out a way to make it work.